Hi everyone, it's Lynnea for LDRS Creative, and today I thought I would show you how to use some previously released Slimline floral stamps and kind of stretch your supplies and use these Slimline stamps on A2 cards. I'm going to be using these as more of a subtle background with subtle hints of pops of color. So I'm going to grab my first stamp set here. This one is the Garden Grandeur Slimline stamp. And I'm going to carefully peel this off, and I have an A2 card panel that I want to lay this diagonally across. I'm going to use the acetate panel that the stamp comes attached to decide which way I want to have this stamp oriented on my card. And I kind of played around with the idea of stamping a full background, stamping this 2 or 3 times across my card to really create a full background, and in the end I decided I just wanted one kind of like flourish of going across my card. I know that I want to heat emboss because I'm going to be using the coordinating stencils to add some quick and easy color, and I'm going to be stamping in LDRS Creative hybrid inks which have a slower drying time. But in order to make sure that I get good coverage with my clear embossing powder, I took my LDRS Creative watermark ink and I inked up my whole Garden Grandeur stamp with the watermark ink first, and then I grabbed my alloy hybrid ink and stamped right over the top. So what I'm going to have as a result is my alloy ink is going to be the color that I've stamped in, but because I also stamped in that watermark ink, I'm going to have an extra layer of a super slow drying ink so that I can easily add clear embossing powder. If you work quickly, you can add clear embossing powder to the hybrid inks without having the extra watermark ink, but I'm not a super quick heat embosser, so I like to use that watermark ink trick. And because it's a clear ink, it's not going to damage your ink pad, so you can do this trick with any color. I went ahead and did the same technique with all 3 of those Slimline stamp sets, the Garden Grandeur, the Tropical Floral, and the Thankful Flowers. Now I'm going to grab the coordinating stencils, and all 3 of these Slimline stamps have coordinating stencils, and they have many layers. This first set here has 4 different layers, and each layer has 2 stencils so that you can get a lot of depth and dimension. I am only grabbing the first layer of the florals for all 3 of my cards because I just wanted to add kind of blobs of color, keeping these colors really subtle and just kind of adding some color here and there to draw your eye in. I am only using 1 color of ink for my first card. This is Soft Kisses, and I'm varying the intensity and the pressure of which I add the ink to my card. So my first stencil, I used a very light hand. Then for my second stencil, I went and used kind of a medium hand. Now for this one, I'm using a lot of ink and a heavy hand. So when I remove this here, you're going to see that with 1 ink pad, I have 3 different shades of color. This is an easy trick if you don't have a lot of ink colors, or for this project, I wanted to make sure that all 3 shades of pink were perfectly coordinated. I'm going to do the same technique on my second card, but I'm using Marina Madness ink. So I've worked through my stencils and I found the first layer of the florals. I'm not doing the greenery on any of the cards. I just wanted the flowers to pop. So I have this first layer and I added Marina Madness with a super light hand. Now I'm going to go in with the second stencil, and this one is going to layer up a little bit on the flowers, but that's okay. There were certain petals of some of the flowers that weren't colored by the first stencil, and I wanted to make sure that the flower petals all had color. I'm using that same Marina Madness ink, and I'm going in with a slightly heavier hand. And then I'm going to grab the third stencil that I'm using, and this is the base layer of these middle flowers here. And I'm actually going to use a light hand because I layered up that Marina Madness on the 2 previous stencils, so I wanted to make sure that I had the lighter shade of that blue showing. So it's a little bit out of order from my first card, but that's okay. Here's my third card. In this one, I did switch it up a little bit. I'm using Lantern Yellow here, and it's a light but vibrant shade of yellow. So again, I just chose the first layer of the flowers for this Garden Grandeur stamp, and I'm just going to ink it up with yellow. I was going to come in and do a heavier hand of lantern yellow, but I didn't think it was going to work as well. So for this one, I did grab a second ink pad. This is Dandelion, but if you wanted to, you could use that same yellow ink and just go super heavy-handed. Okay, so this was my last card for the stenciling. I'm going to peel that off, and then I will move on to the sentiments. I grabbed my circle phrase insert dies for my sentiments, and I chose 3 of them with love, big hugs, and hello, and I cut them each 3 times from black cardstock. And I'm going to just layer these up so that it makes a thicker die cut sentiment. This is a little trick that I like to do when I don't want something as thick as foam tape, but I want there to be some dimension. So I'm just using my liquid adhesive, and I am gluing all 3 of those circle phrase insert die cuts together, and I'll repeat this process with the other sentiments off camera. I also have the double stitched scalloped circle dies, and I took the largest die that has that actual scalloped circle, and I cut that from vellum. And I'm going to center each of these sentiments inside of the vellum. I'll add some foam tape to the back so that that sentiment pops up off the cards. Off screen, I added some black watercolor spatters to each of the panels. I trimmed them down to 4 by 5¼ inches, and I added them onto a black card base. Now I'm just going to remove the foam adhesive backing from each of these sentiments and pop them right up in the center of each card. Now if you wanted to, you could use a smaller sentiment, but I really liked having this big bold sentiment right in the middle of my card and just having that little bit of those floral images peeking out from behind the sentiments. These cards were really easy to make, something that you could absolutely easily mass produce and create a whole set of these to give as a gift, especially with the holidays coming up. I love how each of these cards have a different floral arrangement in the background, and using that alloy ink, it kind of fades into the background a little bit, and that little subtle pop of color peeking out from behind each of these sentiments is absolutely beautiful. I hope that you guys agree and that you love this technique, and that you will look at your Slimline stamps and dies a little bit differently and see how you can use them on different size cards. Thanks for watching. Bye!